unlike most lab studies where you schedule it, you have the research subjects show up at 6 o'clock and they show up at 6:05, and then you do this and then you do this, and it's all very regimented throughout your day. It's not like that, obviously, out in the world of fire. On that hopper fire, on the hopper fire, we were in a situation where we were reliant on the crews to come back to us so we could get their urine samples. Otherwise, we're not going to get the samples. I mean, they're going to get rid of the urine, but it's going to go in the dirt and not in our tubes. And we needed that at critical time points. And one of the evenings was we were finishing a one subject that we had started with in Lincoln, and he was spilling over into this California fire. We had started some other folks from the crew on that same fire in California. They were acting on a different schedule. So the end point for that study, we would have to deliver another oral dose of tracer. The following morning, we would need to collect a second void urine sample, and then we'd need to get a measure of nude body weight, which when you read it in the research manuscript, it's like, well, big deal. What are you bitching about? That's standard practice in a lab. You just have them go into their private bathroom, get naked, you get their weight, they produce a urine sample. Simple. Reasonably simple in a fire camp. But we found out that this crew was not coming back to the fire camp that night. We needed to close that study down. We had $1,000 worth of tracer in play with this participant, and they weren't coming back, which meant we weren't going to get his final urine sample to close the deal on the measure of total energy expenditure. But that's bad. We also weren't going to be able to get his second sample to him and collect those urine samples. So we expressed this to the management team, and urine sample researchers on a giant 35,000 acre fire in Southern California are about as low on the priority list as you can imagine. But they were awesome. They're like, what can we do to help you get those samples? And I'm like, well, we can either send the gear out with somebody and leave it with the crew and they can collect it. And they're like, we're not so keen. We don't want to screw it up for you. How about if we fly you guys out there? I'm like, I'm cool with that. We had our red cards. We'd gone through the whole training this year. So we were able to do that. So they put us on a helicopter, shuttled us out in the middle of the day, late in the day, I guess, and not directly to the crew at some drop point, which then we had to navigate down through the fire line to the crew, tied in with them at night. Spent the evening with them, which was a blast. Slept with the crew out on just tarps and whatnot by a nice fire to keep warm. And we were able to give the tracer that night. We were able to get the urine sample the next morning. Tricky part was getting the nude body weight measurement. As you can imagine, if one person out of a hotshot crew of 20 has to have a measure of nude body weight done, you can imagine that the other 19 people are going to be heckling all the way. So we had to figure out a way to rig up this tarp to at least provide some semblance of privacy. Leveled out the scale on a rock, and he stripped down, hopped on the scale. We got his sample. And I'm just thinking at the time, wow, this is really cool. This is really cool that we had to fly out here to get these urine samples, to get this body weight, because I've been in the field a few years by then, but I knew from all the scientific meetings that I had gone to, most people don't work under these conditions. So the fact that we were able to check off these boxes, we're accomplishing this, we're accomplishing that, we're getting these at the critical time points that we have to get them, and we're pulling it off in this environment. That, to me, at the time, I'm just soaking that in, thinking, this is awesome. I really, really like this. And this was the very first fire season. So we were just kind of getting our taste at being persistent, being patient, making sure that we were not going to be deterred by the environment. And instead of telling the incident management team, you guys have to help us, we went to them and said, here's what we're hoping to get. Can we work with you? And having them offer us, we'll give you all the assistance you need. That was great. And it's just another perfect example that the human relationship side of the science and those collaborations is so key in making these things successful. So just being persistent, but patient at the same patient persistence, I found has just been an essential element when you step outside the lab.